Good morning, everyone. At this time, I would like to call to order the June 20th, 2024 regular meeting of the North County Transit District Board of Directors. Before we begin, members of the public who may be viewing the meeting on the district's YouTube page.
Whoops. What? Now you know what you sound like.
I know. Am I good? Okay. Before we begin, members of the public who may be viewing the meeting on the district's YouTube page, please note that in order to make a public comment during the meeting, you must connect to the meeting using the Zoom link provided on the agenda. In addition, you must also register by sending an email containing your name or phone number and the agenda item on which you wish to speak to clerk@nctd.org. I will now ask our wonderful clerk of the board, Suhel Rodriguez, to call a roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Board Chair Edson,
Present.
Vice Chair Bat Patel,
Here.
Board Member Martinez,
Here.
Board Member Hensy, Board Member Garcia,
Here.
Board Member Robinson,
Here.
Board Member Desmond, Board Member Jenkins,
Here.
Board Member Contreras,
Present.
Board Alternate Matt Coleman.
Here.
This completes the roll.
Thank you. Board Member Jenkins, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Suhel, please provide a safety brief and review evacuation procedures.
Yes, Madam Chair. In case of an emergency, I will dial 911. In case of an evacuation, please exit the building through the left of the building. Once cleared to do so, please do not re-enter until you are cleared to do so by emergency personnel. There are fire extinguishers and first aid kits on this room. There's also a portable defibrillator in this room and staff on hand trained on CPR procedures if needed. This concludes my safety brief.
Thank you. I just received a text from Board Member Hensy. She is trying to park, so she should be with us momentarily. Suhel, have there been any changes to the agenda?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And do we have any non-agenda public comments today?
No, Madam Chair.
At this time, registration to provide general public comments has ended. Before we proceed, I have a couple of quick protocol items to share. I ask that board members please hold your comments and questions until after each agenda item has been presented. Next, when the time comes for questions or comments, please raise your hand and wait until you're called upon to speak. And finally, please turn on and speak into your microphone. You may do this by using the pencils that have been provided and selecting mic on or talk on the screen in front of you. This will ensure that your comments are heard by those listening to our meeting online. Our first item is approval of the minutes of the May 16th, 2024 regular board meeting. May I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve by Contreras. Second.
Motion by Contreras, second by Patel. Please call the vote. Or please vote. Sorry.
On the motion of Board Member Contreras, seconded by Vice Chair Bat Patel to approve the minutes for the regular board meeting on May 16, 2024. Motion passes.
And if I may, just for the record, I know up here it says Luna, but that should say Bob Patel.
Thank you. We'll correct it. And for the record, Ms. Hensy arrived.
Well, thank you for that. Next, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of the May 31st, 2024 special board meeting and the very, very cool 2024 board forward.
Motion, so moved by Karina Contreras.
Motion by Contreras, second by Bat Patel. Please vote.
On the motion of Board Member Contreras, seconded by Vice Chair Patel, to approve the minutes of the special board meeting, Board Forward, on May 31, 2024, motion passes with Board Members Martinez and Hensy abstain.
Thank you. There are 10 items on consent agenda for action today. So have any members of the public requested that any consent items be pulled?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Do any board members wish to pull any items from consent? Seeing no hands raised, may I have a motion to approve consent items 1 through 10?
Move to approve by Contreras.
Motion by Contreras, second by Robinson. Please vote.
Madam Chair.
Did-
On the motion of Board Member Contreras, seconded by Board Member Robinson, to approve consent items 1 through 10, motion passes.
Thank you. Today we have one item of other business to conduct a public hearing for the proposed FY 2025 operating budget and capital improvement program. Over the next few months, or over the past few months, the board has been presented with details of the proposed budget and has engaged in robust discussion. Today, the proposed budget is back before us, this time for adoption. Our Chief Financial Officer, Yoon Park Lynch, gosh, my tongue today. Our Financial, I keep wanting to call you our Chief Executive Officer. Sorry, Sean. Our Chief Financial Officer, Yoon Park Lynch, will be presenting this item. Yoon, the floor is yours.
Good morning, board members. In the last few months, NCTD staff has developed and done a series of activities to support the operating budget that we're proposing for this coming fiscal year 2025. On May 16, recently, we made a full presentation to the board with the significant revenue assumptions and expenses that supported our budget as well as a capital improvement program. Furthermore, on May 23rd, we also presented a very detailed presentation to our Performance Administration and Finance Committee that also described the significant revenues and assumptions that supported our operating budget. On June 3rd, the clerk of the board published a notice of public hearing and also published our full budget document for public comments. And as of today, we have not received any public comments on our proposed budget for this coming fiscal year. Along with the budget document, there are other deliverables that are included for approval by the board today. That includes the employee classification and compensation schedule. These classifications provide general guidelines for determining applicant and qualification for positions, establishing position comparability, and also setting salary ranges. Those class and comp schedules are divided between represented and non-represented employees for ease of administration. We are also including today our proposed cost recovery fees schedule. Those are the fees that we charge for third parties, entities for providing some support services. By California law, the cost recovered is limited to actual cost for the services provided. And then finally, we're also presenting our proposed service implementation plan for FY 25 through FY 2034. The proposed operating budget that we are requesting board approval today, it remains the same that we proposed on our May board meeting. Our total revenues and expenses are balanced. It represents a total of $188 million, and which is an increase of 1.4% compared to our budget from FY 2024. A 5-year plan that we presented to the board on May also remains the same. As you can see, we have a balanced operating budgets for the next 4 years, and we'll have a capital deficit for fiscal year 2029. Our constrained capital improvement program represents the projects that are planned to be funded in the next 5 years. Our total constrained CIP totals $144 million. For the upcoming fiscal year, the total capital investments are budgeted to be around $46 million. So today we are requesting board action, which includes closing the public hearing on the proposed fiscal year 2025 operating budget and the fiscal year 2025-2029 capital improvement program. And also requesting the board to adopt the operating budget, approve the proposed classification compensation schedules, approve the proposed cost recovery fee schedule, and approve the proposed fiscal year 2025 through 2034 service implementation plan. I am open for any questions.
Thank you very much, Yoon. Suhail, are there any public comments on this item?
No, Madam Chair.
At this time, public registration to speak on this item will end. Board members, do you have any questions or comments? Board Member Contreras.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I have a question regarding operating revenues. It's great that we're kind of healthy right now, but I know projected out that could certainly change. I'm curious on which bucket, and I don't believe this has come to fruition, but in the case that it does, where would revenues go that are from company partnerships? There's the potential that the Coaster Connector would have some, could get some companies to provide some kind of a subsidy or a partnership. Where would I expect to see that on the screen here if that comes to fruition?
So if that is funded through a grant agreement, typically we'll put those under local grants. And then when we have grant agreements or contracts that specifically indicate that those revenues can only be used for certain purposes, there's two methods of receiving the grants. You receive them either for a reimbursement basis, which means that you accumulate the costs and you bill a grant agency or third-party agency to get reimbursed for those costs. And we also have grants that are called grants that are advanced, meaning that they give us the money advance, but we cannot use them until the expenditures materialize. In that scenario, in the accounting world, those are recorded as deferred revenue, and as the expenses materialize, we start recognizing the revenue. But those would typically go under local grants.
Okay, so it's, even though it's not, grant like how we're used to, if we did have a company partnership, it would go into that local grants bucket.
Correct.
Okay. And just another comment is, in the future, I think it's really critical for NCTD to look at, other potential additional forms of revenue, partnering with school districts and other government, agencies and private business to look at TDM partnerships. If, that's something that we could, I don't know off the top of my head, but I would love to explore. I definitely want to continue to have a really healthy budget here. But I just do have concerns about the projections out into the future. So that's all. I'll go ahead and make a motion to close the public hearing and adopt staff's recommendation. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for the motion. I do have either a hand up from Board Member Jenkins, and perhaps others wish to speak before we move forward.
Yes, thank you. Just a couple comments. I totally agree with Karina. I think probably all of our public agencies are finding we have some very tough fiscal times coming ahead. So I just want to urge the board to be extremely cautious when considering any new expenditure request moving forward. And also mention that with the redevelopment projects, and I've mentioned this before, we're not developers. And so while building affordable homes is great and all that, and everybody wants to do it, we're not developers. And so I think we have to be certain when we're working on these projects that we're receiving significant revenue or significant opportunity to the district. Because as in a couple of them last month, there was not significant anticipated revenue. So I just think as we move forward, we just need to be prudent and cautious about if it's the right thing to do. Just comments, no questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Board, yes.
Yeah, I really appreciate those comments. And I would say Chris has done a really good job, specifically around the coaster connection of having conversations related to sort of these peripheral revenues that exist when we're working on partnerships, especially as we talk about additional NCTD Plus service. I agree. I think there's a lot of opportunity to engage in some of the non-traditional modes that we're putting into our fixed route and paratransit service that I think would yield some good revenue opportunities. You talked a little bit about the grants part, but in the case of the coaster connection where we would engage in a partnership with a private entity, that revenue would go into the same bucket as grants, or that would go into a different revenue category?
We call local grants,
Okay.
because they're from local sources.
Thank you. Thank you for chiming in. Board Member Robinson, did I see your hand raised over there? No? Okay. Any other questions down the dais? No. Okay. Okay, with that, we have a motion by Director Contreras and a second by Director Hensey. Please vote.
On the motion of Board Member Contreras, seconded by Board Member Hensey, to close the public hearing and adopt the FY 2025 operating budget and the FY 2025 to 2029 capital improvement program, motion passes.
Thank you very much, Suhal, and thank you, Yoon. This was a lot of work, and you did a great job of presenting us with all of the facts that we needed to get to making this decision. So thank you again. Suhal. Thank you for calling the vote. Next up will be our Chief Executive Officer, Sean Donaghy, after which board members will have an opportunity to provide brief reports before we head into closed session. Sean, you have our attention.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. I also want to take an opportunity to thank Yoon and the finance team. Really from day one, I was working on the budget, and every system is a little bit different on how they sort of manage revenues and expectations. And I had a ton of questions about what we were really trying to do for the future and how we were trying to manage some of those things. And I want to give credit to Yoon and the team because they really did a good job of not only showing me sort of how we manage those things in real time, but redirecting some of our efforts to be able to put us in a space where we are today to get an approval on a balanced budget. And so I always want to make sure we give a shout out to the team on that. Thanks to everybody who came to Board Forward. I thought it was a great event. We took a lot away from that. The team's diligently working on sort of an after action report for things that we're going to work through as we continue to go out and talk to city management teams and work through some of our potential opportunities. The Sandag Transportation Committee is coming up tomorrow, and Chris Orlando will be presenting at the Transportation Committee with staff from Sandag and Hoycon to discuss flexible fleets and advanced air mobility. So kudos to Chris to be there tomorrow and do that. We had the App2Rail conference this month, early in July. The theme for the conference was taking full advantage of some of these once in a lifetime funding opportunities that exist for infrastructure needs. Additionally, advancements in zero emission rail vehicles was a huge topic, primarily for commuter rail agencies, especially on the West Coast. We know that's a real push in how do we sort of find those zero emission technologies that are affordable, that agencies can help get federal assistance on. Want to give a shout out to Mary Dover, who co-authored a keynote commentary article in Passenger Transport on partnerships, infrastructure costs, and owning railroad as a public agency. As I was able to walk around the conference, we got a lot of great comments about the article that she co-authored. So wanted to give her a shout out for that. We had a great meeting with the Construction Network. We were invited by the partners over there to come and speak about the agency's future vision, but also some of the projects that we're working on that may sort of come up over the next couple of years. They were interested in that. And I want to give a thank you to Tracy Foster and Scott Leschke, who came and presented at that meeting also. Some of you may or may not know, if you were on the Board Forward tour, Don Curry, who met us at the division and gave a very good overview of what we were doing at East Division, retired on June 6th for almost 40 years of service. First of all, that is incredible, 40 years of service. Don worked in several different capacities in the organization, but most recently had oversight of our maintenance team and processes on the NCTD side. He was very integral in helping the transition for bus operations to zero emission and all the policies and procedures that are sort of associated with that. And so we want to make sure that we thank Don publicly for his service. We had a really nice event out at the East Division, West Division a few weeks ago for him. And, when you work somewhere 40 years, there's a lot of emotion tied to that. There's a lot of feelings that go with it. But, we're always happy when people, we're sad that we lose an employee, but we're happy that somebody gets to move on to the next phase of sitting around and golfing or whatever it is that Don wants to do. Thank you to Encinitas City Council. We were there last week to discuss some priorities as well as talk about quiet zones. Lillian Doherty on our team gave a great presentation on rail upgrades and how to manage quiet zones from a city perspective. So I wanted to say thanks to her. NCTD Plus and Coaster Connection. I'll say excellent work by the planning and operations team to stand up these two new services without a single issue. We didn't have a single issue on either one of them. They went off without a hitch. I want to give a big thanks to the San Marcos City Council and our own Deputy Mayor Sharon Jenkins, Cal State San Marcos and the San Marcos Chamber of Commerce for joining us at the Farmers Market. That was a great event. What a great kickoff for NCTD Plus. And then on the flip side of that, I want to thank Chair Edson, Councilmember Lee, and President Pro Tem LaCava, who joined us in Sorrento Valley with our partners at Biocom for the Coaster Connection launch. This upcoming Thursday next week, we have our marketing, service planning, and business development meeting. It'll be at our Tremont location down by the OTC Transit Center. And then the last thing I have is the Losan Rail realignment. Sandag has released for public comment a notice of preparation for the environmental impact report, which includes 3 options that are currently being studied. When the public comment period is completed, we intend to bring that back to the board, either as a presentation from our own staff or as a joint presentation from us and Sandag staff, just to talk about what came through the public comment period and also what those 3 realignment options sort of look like. To be quite frank, the NOP process has very little information sort of embedded in it about what it is, what it's not. It's really relying on sort of the public process to get into the environmental phase. And I think that's the key that we want to come back to the board and have a conversation about at some point. Any response that we would give to the NOP process, I think from an agency perspective, would really be in relation to operational impacts of the organization as it relates probably a lot less to the service that NCTD has in the Losan corridor, probably more specifically to us being a owner of the railroad and our responsibility to our partners at Amtrak and BNSF and some of the other partners that exist in the rail. I think the way we have to look at it from an agency perspective is we're an owner of a railroad first, and we're also a user of the railroad second. And so we have to sort of manage those expectations in real time that, yes, we are concerned about impacts to the agency in terms of our service and also the communities that are impacted that are within the district. But we really have to take a step further and sort of manage what those potential issues look like for our partners that work with us and operate along the line. So more to come on that. We did attend the informational session on Tuesday night. It was more of a little bit of a show and tell presentation from Sandag, and then the ability to sort of walk around and look at pieces of the alignment and give public feedback. It was very well attended. I think you always want to see that when you have some of these big public projects. So, that's probably, I think, good news for the project. More to come on this. We will bring this back to the board, but I just want to make sure it's on everybody's radar. And once we get that public feedback back and we get a little closer to the environmental stage, we'll bring it back to the board and make sure that we give sort of everybody sort of a rundown of where Sandag's at in the process. So that's all I had, unless anybody has any questions for me.
Thank you. Any questions for our CEO? No? Okay, with that, board members, do you have any brief comments that you'd like to share? Board Member Contreras.
I just want to say thank you. I believe it's Caesar who was able to fix the coaster. I was on it coming back from San Diego, and we hit something in Sorrento Valley, and I thought I was going to be stuck there forever. But I was only stuck there for a little bit. So I really want to thank Sean and the team for filling these critical positions with really qualified staff. I did miss the Sprinter connection. So, we need more frequency on that Sprinter later into the day, but I didn't miss the last bus. So I got to take the 306 bus, a different route than I usually take, but just as great. So thank you.
Thank you for that comment. Any other board comments? Board Member Martinez.
I just wanted to say, I'm sorry I missed the board forward retreat, but I think it was meant to be because Mayor Drucker had the time of his life. He was so happy to fill in for me. He said it was memory lane. He's not running for reelection. I think he served for 20 years. He saw his plaque on a lot of buildings, and so it was a highlight for him. So sometimes things work out. I had a personal family commitment that I just couldn't get out of. And Dave, of course, was right there to support me in being the backup, but it was meant to be. He thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was a special day for him.
It was great to actually ride with Dave. And Dave and I met at Solana Beach Station to start our journey. And so we had one more ride than all of you did in the day, because we started at Solana Beach Station, came up here to OTC, and then rode with everyone back to Solana Beach. And at the end of the day, after we toured the other facilities, rode back to Solana Beach on the coaster. But it was great. And staff did an excellent job of every detail. And it was so informative. I think I just can't say more good things about what we did. And I hope that we repeat this in the future. So with that, Ms. Winfrey, would you like to take us into closed session?
Yes, Madam Chair. So the board will now go into closed session to discuss anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code Sections 54956.9 subsections D2 and E related to the Clean Water Act 60-day notice of intent to sue letter received from the Coastal Environmental Rights Foundation and San Diego Coastkeeper on June 7, 2024.
Ms. Winfrey, are there any reportable actions from closed session?
No, Madam Chair, the board met in closed session today to receive notice and discuss a strategy to address the notice of intent to sue under the Clean Water Act from Coastal Environmental Rights Foundation and San Diego Coastkeeper. There is no reportable action.
Thank you. Our next scheduled meetings are the Marketing, Service Planning and Business Development Committee, AKA MISBA, MISBA, on June 27th, 2024 at 1 p.m. at the NCTD building located at 311 South Tremont Street in Oceanside. The regular board meeting at 11 a.m. on July 18th, 2024, once again here at the City of Oceanside, 300 South Coast Highway. Before we close, I'd just like to take a moment to thank the City of Oceanside again for allowing us temporary use of your council chambers. Thank you all. This meeting is adjourned.